I said last year that I would do some videos about writing, and so here I am. I'm very unprepared. I don't know if this is a good thing to do or not. It's a kind of come as you are thing. The reason I wanted to do it is because I realise now that I have been in the publishing game for over 25 years, and that perhaps I might have some useful reflections for people who are looking at becoming writers or just are interested in the whole writing process or how it's changed or anything like that. Um, so I'm just going to do some short snapshots about things that I'm thinking about at the moment. And this is very timely for me because I am at the stage for the first time in 25 years where I don't have any books planned. I don't know if I'll ever publish another book again. I still write because I'm a writer, but I'm just not sure if I have anything left in me. I've written everything from, picture books to yo memoir to Yo verse novel, which, I'm glad that I've done all of those things. And yet I sometimes fear that it's been an enormous waste of time and that I possibly would have been better off directing my energies to something that made more money. I don't know. Um, but seriously, the things that I reflect on are that when I entered the writing business, and by the way, there may be some chihuahua noises coming from the other side of the room. Um, so when I first started publishing, I literally posted off manuscripts. So I think the internet had just started, but submissions were still mostly done by sending hard copies of a sample of your manuscript with a cover letter, with a synopsis, with a stamped self returning envelope thing, so that the publisher wasn't paying to send back your rejection, which is what normally happened. Um, and it's been it feels like it's just a very, very different world now where you can actually publish stuff yourself. If you're watching this on Substack, Substack is a great way of reaching audience members. And that wasn't around when I started. So the publishing world just looked very different because it was all old school. There were also, I think, probably more readers then. And particularly for me, because my first few novels were young adult novels, teenagers were still reading more, I think, than they are now. And so there was kind of a ready-made market if you came in as a young adult and children's author. I remember a publicist once said to me, when I was asking about the publicity that they were doing about some book or other, and she kind of said flippantly, well, we don't need to do that with kids' books because they sell themselves. And I remember being really offended, going, well, especially because I'd started off with Fremantle Press, which was a small press. It still is a small press. And I felt like I really needed all the help that I could get to get the word out. But nevertheless, she was actually right. Those books did sell themselves in a way that that other types of writing didn't. So I came in, I think, probably in the golden age of young adult literature, but I literally knew nothing. I knew nothing about publishing. I knew nothing about contracts. I knew nothing about putting myself out there. I felt like I was writing because I felt a burning need to, and I wanted to have the kind of books out there that I didn't have when I was a teenager, about, bogan lesbian chicks or whatever, or kids in mental health facilities and things that just weren't really in the literature that I read when I was a teenager, and nor the literature that I really came to read before I was publishing, so in the late 90s, I guess. Because it was and is the case that most writing and publishing is done by middle class people. It's just a fact. And so working class voices have never really been promoted or valorized or any of that kind of thing. So I started off really genuinely just wanting to connect to audiences on that level and to try and reach the kind of kid that I'd been at school. So when I look back on those early times, I was just full of longing and hope. And when I sent out the chapters for Obsession, which was my first published novel, I sent it to 3 different publishers at the same time. And I accepted the first offer that I got, which was from Fremantle Press, and I subsequently got other interest from other publishers. And it was really good to be with a local press. And it was just having my first book was just an amazing experience. But in those days, because there was just such a big East-West divide, again, I mean, it's still there in Australia, but it is much, much less than it used to be. I did feel like I came in at a disadvantage. So, for example, at that time, Fremantle Press only did 2 colour covers, which just put you right behind from the get-go. But for that first book, I was just happy to have it out. I was just so excited. It was something that I had wanted to do since I was about 8 or 9 years old. So I started off, with hope and joy, and the feeling of holding my book in my hands for the first time was something I'm very, very, very grateful to have had. It was a great experience. So that's the introduction, I guess, to where I started. I have got some questions from people about writing, but I thought I might just leave it to you now. And if there are any burning questions you have or suggestions, I apologise for the lo-fi setup that I have, but this is what I have and this is where I am. I've never had my own room to write in, so I'm in my living room. So please send in any ideas that you have for things that you would like to know. And also, it doesn't have to be about writing. It can be about, I don't know, art, life, career, I don't know, being a bogan, chihuahuas. In fact, some of you here might be watching this going, where's the chihuahua? Because my writing YouTube channel has been taken over by my chihuahua. So if you're expecting a chihuahua, I'm sorry, I'll pick him up next time. Okay. Thanks for listening and watching if you got to this far, and let me know what you think.